Hi everyone, buenos dias. Well, how many of you here are SREs, DevOps engineers, or at least have worked with such a framework? Perfect, that's great. And how many of you have been in an on-call before and during incidents? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, sorry for that. Perfect. So I'm an SRE focused on observability. So that's like, observing the system and everything. You can check my LinkedIn profile if you have any questions or if you want to connect, please do that. Also on my GitHub profile, you have the slides for this talk and my previous talks. So you can spend a minute there, go to GitHub and download the slides. They're all there in case you want to visualize them better. Right, so today I'm going to be speaking about how is to be in an incident, in an on-call, and basically how to deal with the mayhem and what you can take away from that reading your postmortems. So like you all said, you all have been dealing with incidents. You know how chaotic it can be and how stressful it can be. You are dealing from one side with alerts, with an incident. You have your managers breathing down your neck, keep asking you about updates, etc. You're there sweating a lot, trying to deal with communication, putting status pages up, just giving updates to the customer. So it's very, very stressful. It's very frustrating at times. And the only thing I think you're thinking about how is to fix this as fast as possible and get out of here, right? So you're there in the middle of things and you want it to be over. How many of you are familiar with what a postmortem is and what's like the definition? Awesome. So this is like a postmortem is basically like a document that describes the incident, the resolution, what you could have done it to prevent it from happening again. So it's something really easy, and you can share it if you want to with the customers and with your managers, with the entire organization. So normally, postmortem follows like four main steps. You need to identify and describe the problem. Then you need to establish a timeline from the normal situation until the problem occurs. And then you need to distinguish between all the root causes and other causal factors, right? And not least, you need to prescribe some corrective actions to prevent reoccurrence. So this is like more or less the objective of a postmortem, right? To prescribe those corrective actions. Right. So a postmortem culture was like a key term coined by Google some years ago. It's not new. So they were trying to focus more on this idea of how to shift the negative terms and move them to a positive spin to get like a positive reaction from everything. So normally when you are in such a situation like in an incident, normally you get all the blame because there's mistakes being done, failures, errors, etc. So it's not very useful to get stuck in something negative. It's always good to focus on the positive, which is, right, open communication, collaboration, and not the least, do those post-mortem reviews. How many of you are doing actually post-mortem reviews in your organization? Okay, that's great. So basically, post-mortem reviews are like a very good way of getting out of that, let's say, blame, like getting out of that negative situation and actually learning something from it and preventing from happening again. So if you're doing actually post-mortem reviews, you want to be shifting into a different direction, right? So you want to leave behind the reactive management. I'm talking about reactive being, just a standby or waiting for things to happen. You want to ditch that and focus on proactive management, meaning, how to prevent things from happening again, how to make sure that you don't have that situation ever again. The best way to achieve this, in my opinion, is focusing on observability. So observability pillar will give you the best way to, and the best information actually to get all that information packed and make you, give you that confidence that things will not repeat, right? So, how many of you are actually using observability in your organization or have something implemented? Okay, great. This looks great. Perfect. Right. So I'm going to focus right now on some of the use cases, actually at Elastic, because trying to focus more on this talk, I actually wanted to give some concrete information on, let's say, how top severity 1 and 2 incidents look at Elastic. So I did like an analysis, and this came up like really interesting. So top 3 root causes from incident severity 1 and 2 incidents at Elastic focus on upgrades. So basically that could be, system upgrades, software upgrades, coming from the external world, so from customers, or the outside world, sorry, and also internal. Here I'm talking about, let's say, for example, Linux kernel updates. Whoever was in an incident that was caused by such an upgrade and, oops, caused a major mishap in production. Yeah, cool. So we are on the same page. Then it could be something like a bug in the JDK, for example, that they actually released a workaround a week before. Everything worked in your system great, but then a week later it doesn't work anymore. So yeah, that could also cause something really bad in your production system, and everything can go down immediately. So the second root cause that more or less pointed to severity 1 and 2 incidents were like network. Network basically, even if you change a small thing in your proxy or like in your network, can have a devastating effects in the production. So please make sure that you are being really careful about how you're changing everything network-wise. And third but not least, security. So you can never have, you can never ever be prepared enough to avoid security issues. They just love people to attack and, to be creative in such a way that every year there's a new attack coming up. So unfortunately, security will always be like one of the top root causes. Right. So what did we learn based on incidents like these? We learned that we needed to do some small steps. We needed to improve, first of all, observability, and we needed to shift away from as many as, let's say, unreliable systems or ineffective systems as we could. So we moved from third-party tools. For example, I will just use this case of StatusCake. We are using StatusCake monitoring. And we moved away from that and we focused on Kibana alerting. So that gave us basically an internal hands-on incident management. Also, being an internal tool, it was easier for us to let's say, troubleshoot, etc. Then we focused on creating uptime checks. That's on synthetic monitoring. I'll explain a bit later. And then other proactive measures were to create SLOs, so service level objectives, and burn rate alerts. Again, I will explain a bit later. And integrate as much as possible of this with Elastic Observability AI Assistant. So, I was talking about Kibana before, Kibana alerting. So basically, this is how it looks in the UI. So you have the observability stack there with alerts. You can right now go in and create your own rules. There could be a bunch of, there are many different types of rules that you can use. So it's easier to manage from having, everything available within one stack in the observability stack. And also, this is how it looks if you want to create some synthetic monitoring. Basically, these checks are like monitors. They will check, for example, if your deployments are up, you've seen everything green, so that means it's good. You're getting to 100 status check, status codes, and then if you have like a deployment, having a networking issue, you'll get some errors there. or if it's down completely. So that's another way of a preventive measure, in case something goes down, it can help you troubleshoot. And the SLOs I was mentioning again, right now they're available in the observability stack, so you can go ahead and create some SLOs for your team that could definitely help you alongside the burn rate alerts, just with the error budgeting and so on. Okay. So right now I will show you a quick demo of an open telemetry application that is being integrated with the Elastic Observability AI Assistant, and we'll go through the flow of everything. So let's see that in action. So basically, I was saying that you can create SLOs within an application. So this is an example of such an application that you can have, your SLOs there, the historical information on the SLOs if they're being violated. Then you can go directly into the application performance monitoring part and check how your application is performing. If you have any errors, you can consult the metadata, traces, logs, and so on. So lots of useful information right from this user interface, right? So if you wanna, let's say, you are on call or not necessarily, if you want to be proactive and take a look at your application, you can do that. You can interact with the Elastic AI Assistant, which obviously has been previously trained with such type of information. And you can ask, okay, so what's wrong with this error? What am I looking at? So they'll give you like a breakdown of the trace. So this information is about, okay, is doing this, you can have these possible causes for this issue. You can check this type of troubleshooting steps, so very handy for you. If you want to open it up and ask more questions, okay, but do you have anything integrated with the runbook? Can you give me an example of such a runbook? So it will give you the exact information if it's linked with the runbook, and you could go ahead and open up if you have a GitHub issue linked to that. So let's see it in action. Right, so this is very handy if you are integrating all this information within, let's say, an AI assistant, doesn't matter the name. If you have it, it's another, let's say, layer, another step for the engineer on call, or not necessarily on call, to help him troubleshoot anything. So even if you are not in the moment, if you are not right in the moment of an incident, you can still be proactive and take a look, and it will help you basically be your right hand to start troubleshooting something. Next, what we did focus a lot on infrastructure. So we had, let's say, quite a lot of incidents, not necessarily a severity 1 and 2, but quite a lot of them, let's say 4 and 5 severity, that were focused on capacity. So this was because Elastic basically has 5 cloud providers, so it's quite huge. It's also focused on different regions, so it's multi-regional, so it's quite a big, let's say, organization. We tried to do a lot of, let's say, in-depth house cleaning, in-depth housekeeping there, and we started removing allocators, upgrading, basically trying to, put focus on cost optimization, reducing that high bill on the infrastructure. Next, we focused on documentation. So every time, obviously, you're going to be changing something, a process or a runbook, you need to keep updating everything. So you need to have, write new processes, keep those documentation updated, and not the least, get involved with the community. So it's has been really interesting to start getting more connected with the community, going back and forth into that open communication I was talking about, because sometimes, your customers may be using your products in a whole different way. Not the least, we focused also on the incident management. Here, I'm talking about the incident management platform. I'm not sure what you're using a specific incident management platform, I'm pretty sure, in your organization. So we wanted to spend less time actually on identifying incident severity and focusing more time in actually fixing the problem. So that's why we spend more time in integrating runbooks and documentation within the incident management platform. And this helped us, with the automation, actually liberate more time for the on-call engineer. Right, so I was talking right now about little steps that we have been doing in regards to observability, infrastructure, incident management, documentation, but all these small changes actually lead to bigger changes. So these bigger changes are more or less in the way of how we think about architecture, how we think about system design. Small changes actually over time will lead to bigger changes. So you need to spend more time actually with a lot of the stakeholders in your organization and figure out, okay, which are those changes that we want to do that will really, let's say, optimize what we are doing here, that will really save time, will make us more reliable, and will improve our system. So just to give a couple of examples here, one such change at Elastic has been the transition to serverless. So this has been going on for a year now. It's not something overnight. So a lot of engineering hours there behind this change. So meaning switching to serverless means that we focus more on architecting everything with Kubernetes, decoupling the storage, and basically focusing on reducing that query latency. And this has been actually quite a very important change. The next change is developing the ESQL query language. So this is Elasticsearch query language, which basically is a specialized query and compute engine. So the next was focused more on the community. So it's actually, we wanted to give back to the open telemetry community, so to the open source community. So this is why Elastic basically has focused on donating the BPF-based profiling agent. This is an ongoing project, and it's also useful for Elastic due to the constant feedback that we're getting from the open source community, but also very good for the open telemetry project itself, which is right now, let's say, at its peak. It's evolving, so it's quite a great collaboration. And not the least, the observability AI assistant, which you've seen like the short demo before. It helps basically integrate a lot of runbooks, a lot of documentation, and basically you can train it on whatever you want. It will help engineers and SREs in general to focus more on their jobs. Right, so the main takeaways here I wanted to focus on are that all these changes, the technical changes that you are doing, or the engineering changes that you are doing, they don't count if they're not focused also on the people, right? Because right now, at the moment, we still are on call. We are not run by Gen AI or AI. So we are the ones in the center of action. And we need to spend more time in empowering ourselves and our colleagues, upskilling, so spending more time in training ourselves, and observing. So not necessarily focusing on, I don't know, how fast am I operating with this specific tool, but also being proactive. So this is what I want you to take from this. Being proactive means the capacity, right, the ability to decide and react. How many of those, let's say, big incidents could have been cut short if your colleagues were more, were like faster in reaction, or they decided to react faster in the first place? I'm pretty sure that all those incident duration can be cut in half, if not by much more than that, if when you're on call you actually are confident, decide, and react. So that's very important to take away from this as well. So I put a bunch of resources for you that will, if you want to get more in depth with any of the technologies I presented right now, you can go ahead alongside, obviously, they are all present in the slides in the GitHub if you want to take a look. And also, if you have any questions that you cannot ask right now, you can use the QR code. We'll give you a feedback form. You can ask any questions there. So thank you very much for your attention. And thank you very much to the JOTB organizers. They have been doing a great job. So if you have any questions, please let me know.